Folks, we are at a precarious moment in our nation's history. All of us in this room who have lived in the generation post-World War II, we're used to growing up in a world of ever-increasing freedoms. We saw new democracies being born. We saw walls coming down. We saw our freedoms expand, the freedom to speak our mind or practice our faith or to love whom we would love. And we thought that this was inexorable, that it was like the moral arc of the universe always bending towards justice. Until suddenly we found ourselves in a world where it was not bending towards justice. Until suddenly we saw not new democracies being born, but new autocracies. Instead of seeing our own rights here at home expand, we saw them start to contract. And we have come to learn, much to our shock and astonishment, that this thing we call democracy is fragile. And now we are on the precipice of another great threat to our democracy, and that...
For generations, people believed democracy was something permanent, something so deeply rooted in the foundation of nations that it could not be shaken. After the horrors of World War II, the world seemed to move in the right direction. There was a sense of hope, a belief that history was marching forward toward greater freedom, justice, and equality. Many of us grew up watching countries liberate themselves from dictatorships, new democracies rising across the globe, walls of division collapsing, and people gaining rights they had long been denied. It felt as though the path of progress was inevitable, that every generation would enjoy more freedom than the one before it, that the moral arc of the universe was indeed bending toward justice. But what we failed to see was that democracy, unlike concrete, is not unbreakable. It is delicate, dependent on people who are willing to protect it, and as history has shown us, it can vanish if neglected. The shocking realization for many has been that the freedoms once taken for granted are not guaranteed. They can be chipped away piece by piece, often so subtly that people do not even realize what is being lost until it is almost gone. The right to vote, the right to speak freely, the right to live without fear of oppression. These rights must be defended continuously because the moment society assumes they will always exist is the moment they begin to erode. In recent years, instead of seeing democracy flourish, we have seen autocracy on the rise. Leaders around the world, and even within our own borders, have begun consolidating power, restricting freedoms, and undermining institutions that protect equality and fairness. What once seemed unimaginable in a country that prided itself on being the beacon of democracy has now become a harsh reality. The truth is that democracy is fragile because it relies on people to uphold it, to respect the rules, and to believe in the principles of fairness and justice. When leaders decide that their own power is more important than the system itself, the foundation begins to crack. When lies are told to sow distrust in elections, when voting rights are attacked, and when corruption takes root in the highest offices, democracy begins to wither.
And that is this effort by Donald Trump and Republicans in Texas to take people's vote away, to make the votes of those in California worth less, by taking lines in Texas that are already horribly gerrymandered to elect Republicans and making them worse. This is a president who has never viewed himself as a president of the United States of America, but only as a president of some of the states and some of the regions that voted for him. This has never been the case in America. But I will say this, you come after our votes in California and we will fight you tooth and nail.
One of the most pressing dangers facing the nation today is the deliberate attempt to weaken the power of people's votes, and this threat is not coming from outside enemies but from within. Donald Trump and his Republican allies in Texas have been working tirelessly to manipulate the electoral system in their favor, and the weapon they are using is gerrymandering. Gerrymandering has always been a problem in American politics, but in recent years it has reached alarming levels. In Texas, districts that were already heavily manipulated to favor one party are being redrawn in even more extreme ways, making sure that Republican candidates can secure victories regardless of what the majority of voters want. By doing this, they are essentially stripping people of their voice and making the votes of millions count for less. This is not just a technical political maneuver. It is a direct attack on democracy itself, because the very essence of democracy lies in the idea that every vote should carry equal weight. The impact of this is far-reaching. When the power of the people is diluted, policies no longer reflect the will of the majority, but instead serve the interests of a narrow group of politicians who rig the system to stay in power. Californians are especially being targeted in this effort, as their votes are being deliberately undermined by decisions made in Texas. The message this sends is clear: some votes matter, others do not. This is dangerous because it sets a precedent where political power is no longer earned through fair competition of ideas, but secured through manipulation of the rules. A democracy where votes are unequal is not a true democracy at all. It becomes an illusion of freedom rather than the reality of it. Donald Trump's approach to leadership has never been about representing the entire country. He has always viewed himself as president only for those who supported him, never for all Americans. This attitude has seeped into the strategies being employed by his allies, who are determined to reshape the system so that power remains concentrated in their hands regardless of the will of the people. By redrawing district lines and pushing restrictive voting measures, they are ensuring that large populations, particularly in states like California, are marginalized politically. This kind of manipulation is not only unjust, but deeply un-American, because the foundation of the Republic rests on the principle of fair representation. The danger of gerrymandering and voter suppression is not just about one election or one president. It's about the erosion of trust in the system itself. When citizens begin to believe that their votes no longer matter, participation declines, faith in institutions crumbles, and democracy weakens.
Donald Trump, you do not poke the bear. Not while we're around. And people need to understand why he's doing this. They just passed in Congress the most reprehensible bill, their big ugly bill, that is raising health care costs for millions of people. It's going to cost millions of people their health care. As we stand here today, notices are already beginning to go out to tell people their health insurance costs are going up by 50% or 70%. People now, parents that are off buying back-to-school things for their kids, are seeing backpacks up 30% because of his stupid tariff wars, and pens and pencils costing even more. They're having to tell their kids they can't engage in certain extracurricular activities because they just don't have the money. People losing their health care, their costs are going up. This guy ran on a platform of bringing down the cost of the American people, and he's a failure. He's a failure. Costs continue to rise, but take solace in this. As you, the American people, are paying more and more for your everyday lives, Donald Trump's economy is going great. His personal economy is great. He's building a $200 million ballroom for himself. He just got his third Air Force One. He's making more money for himself and his family than he ever has in his whole life put together. He doesn't give a rat's ass about you. Not in California, not in Texas. He only cares about himself. It is his underlying corruption that is responsible for the reason why you are struggling hard to make a living. And we are going to fight back. We're going to make sure that here in California, your vote matters. If they're going to play with fire, we're going to fight fire with fire. And let me just say this to quote our wonderful governor, Donald Trump, thank you for your attention to this matter.